So shall we
I
start?
request you to put your cameras on unless there are bandwidth issues.
So I may I request all the seniors to kindly put their cameras on, sir, for a virtual group photo, sir, also. You may kindly put your mics on mute, sir. Sir, can we start, Sanjay, sir?
Yes, please, because
Okay.
we have to maintain time.
Sir, thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. So, good afternoon, everyone, sir. I'm Rajesh Kumar, Senior Manager in HRD, and I extend a warm welcome to each one of you, sir, for yet another enlightening session of the Antardrishti. And I'm delighted to be the host of today's session again. As you all know, sir, that Antardrishti has been a journey for us, a journey of knowledge, a journey of insights. And another milestone in the same journey promises to be another stepping stone. With these interactions of the Antardrishti, we aim to trigger the fresh perspective on different topics and also at the same time encourage the further exploration by the individual in their journey of excellence, ultimately charting the organization's success. So without further much ado, for starting with the 8th session on this Antardrishti, which is titled as Leveraging Networks for the Organizational Excellence, let me welcome first Sri Sanjay Dhar, sir, CGM HRD, MTI, for his welcome address and setting the tone, sir. Please, sir. Sanjay, sir.
Thank you, Rajesh. I'd not like to stand between the faculty and our distinguished guest. The purpose of having this particular topic in Antardrishti was linked with a lot of organizational, challenges and opportunities that we are having. In our Great Places to Work survey, we have identified collaborative communications as one area where the organization needs to make more progress. In our feedback, internal survey of all the executive directors, we are looking at what are the issues which are inhibiting conversion of our strategies into executable plans. We had the EDs themselves had rated working in silos as one of the areas where we need to change our mindset. We have this constant concern which has been expressed by our chairman sir also, that SAIL is a company with smart people which we are not able to leverage. We still have a lot of things to do in terms of having a robust non-enablement processes. We have the processes in place, we have the IT infrastructure in place, we have the COPs, but we need more people to connect. At the end of the day, it is the people who will connect. Our people have their knowledge networks extending beyond the organization, and we as an organization need to leverage that also. So these were some concerns that drove us to take up this issue for introspection today in Antardrishti. And the other issue that we wanted to pick up was culturally, we are attuned to thinking of networking as something that manipulative people do. And people who work hard don't need to network. But what we realize is that going forward, when we have to get results and we have to achieve collaborative results, a lot of the informal mechanisms, a lot of the way we are able to tap into resources which go beyond our formal structure, actually determines whether we are going to succeed or not. So these were some of the concerns that are at the back of our mind. And networking by itself, of collaborating, it's basically a tool for collaboration. And collaboration is a very nuanced subject. There are a lot of issues about collaboration that we still need to fine tune. And we thought that this would be a good way to start reflecting on that aspect. I'd like to convey the message of our Director Personnel, sir. He was scheduled to join us, but he has been immediately called for some urgent meeting. But he conveyed his best wishes to all the participants. And REDHRD is traveling currently. So I'd like to hand over back to Rajesh, because frankly enough, more than me, I'd like to hear from our faculty today. And he's somebody who knows this subject well, has been there, done that. He knows it from an academic perspective as well as from an organization perspective. I leave that to Rajesh to
Thank you,
introduce
sir. Thank you,
Dr.
sir.
Pant, and then Dr. Pant can take it over.
Sir, thank you for setting the tone and also very internalizing the subject also. Now let's delve directly into the heart of the matter and set the stage for the insightful discussion. Please allow me to introduce the faculty for today, Dr. Gautam Pant. Dr. Pant is an associate professor at NTPC School of Business and has more than 24 years of work experience in industry as well as in academia. So a blend of both, sir. He has an experience which includes a stint as a chief business officer at Racecourse. He has taught also at RACS School of Business Environment and was associate director programs for the construction program management program. Sir, Dr. Pant is a Fulbright scholar and certified compensation and benefits manager. Sir has done his PhD from IIT Delhi and Global MBA HR from SP Jain, Dubai. Sir has been a winner of various competition and won numerous awards. Sir, without much ado, sir, let me hand over to you, sir. And as sir said that let's hear from you, sir. So the stage is yours, sir. Please, sir.
Good evening, everyone. I hope I'm audible to you all. I'd
Yes,
like to, first of all, express my gratitude to your company for giving me an opportunity to speak to such a distinguished audience. I'm really enthused to see such a large number of people out here. Dhar Saab, Mukherjee Saab, thank you so much for considering that I will be able to put in seeds of thought about this particular topic to all the distinguished gentlemen who are a part of this meet today. So I'll begin by sharing my screen. And before I do that, I must also talk about the background with which we are sitting here. So there was a lecture that, or rather a discussion that was organized for the high potential candidates of your company. The idea was that we talk about the challenges, and of course, I'm not privy to the reports that your company would have generated. I'm sure that all these challenges are very well known to you. So be it about having more sustainable operations, better project management and operational management, better stakeholder management, and of course, be there as a force to reckon as you are in times to come. Now, we discussed in the previous session, deliberated as to how knowledge management and networks which facilitate knowledge management can be used by the company to create new initiatives, to have better thought processes, to leverage the combined knowledge and initiatives of people so that we are able to set the change in motion within the company to take it to the newer heights or better heights than it has already achieved. And with that background, we are now coming today talking to you all because these networks cannot sustain, cannot take off without mentoring from each and every one of you. Unless and until we decide to mentor, foster networks and foster stronger ties, then these initiatives, which could be sporadic and which would spur, might die down. So let's talk about, what is it that about networks which makes them tick. And before I begin this lecture, I must humbly submit that whatever I'm going to speak today is just a proposition, or this is a set of propositions that I'll be putting up in front of you. Of course, I shall talk about what the literature says and what my exposure to, very good thinkers in the West, typically Dr. Robert Kelly, who talks about star followers, etc., what they have talked about. So this lecture would delve on all these. But at the end of the day, I will leave you with certain propositions in keeping with the spirit of this entire lecture, which is Antardrishti. There is a questionnaire that I have already forwarded to Dhar Saab, which shall be circulated to all of you, which will help you to assess your own followers. but more about that, when we begin the lecture. So I will share my screen. Kindly let me know, Rajesh, if my screen is visible to all of you.
It is, sir.
Thank you so much. I'll put it in the,
So we could see the agenda slide.
So yeah, so the agenda for today is that we'll talk about the need for networks. Why is it that networks are at all needed? So what are different types of network, and how do we create and manage formal networks? I'm sure that all of you will be aware about it, but then we'll talk about it. And then we shall talk about how do we understand and manage followers, because the relationship between the people, the network drivers, and the people who are there in the network is very, very important. And most importantly, trust becomes a prime mover in creating great relationships, in creating operational excellence. So how do we foster trust in these relationships would be a topic that I would like to touch upon. Now, moving forward, all these areas of knowledge management, product to market excellence, operational excellence and project management, and stakeholder management can be very effectively handled by creating networks for these specific purposes and making sure that these networks work in a very synergistic manner, so that all these areas that are listed in front of you are, value is added to these areas. And these areas, become the focal point for the company, and the company leverages the knowledge and the expertise and the innovations which are spurred by these networks. Now, there are advantages, to having networks, which is very well documented. I will not talk about all that here specifically, but to name a few, you can look at any of the consultings, the Deloittes and KPMGs of the world are using knowledge management and using networks in their own company to leverage the combined knowledge. And that is why you see them churning RFPs in very quick succession and are able to leverage on whatever work that they have already done to bring in state-of-the-art solution to their clients. Similarly, there are companies who work or take power of these networks, and crowdsourcing is one which actually helps companies to tap into those competitive intelligence or those new thoughts, which helps them to create state-of-the-art products in the market. Project management, again, and operational excellence, unless and until we create networks who drive quality, who drive sensitization about, bringing value in projects, we will not be able to be as effective as we could be. Similarly, stakeholders have to be connected by networks. Maybe the company itself might not be dealing too many with external stakeholders, but stakeholders, nevertheless, are very, very important part in creating a perception about the company and its excellence. And all the PR that you see and all the kind of networks that we have created, knowingly, unknowingly, also put in noise, proper, good noise, accolades, etc., in the public space for the companies to be noticed by people across the globe. Most of the nations and countries are spending so much amount of money to create those right networks, which can actually make your company's image grow within no time. Government of India today is one such sterling example of how to manage stakeholder management and how to manage perceptions of different stakeholders by taking control of these networks. But how are these networks created? What are these different types of networks? How do these networks drive? Are they sustainable on their own? Are they organic, or somebody is creating them? How is it that they are being forged? Are the questions that might come to our mind. So we'll talk about it, by first of all understanding relationships. So networks are a set of, they are, of course, there are relationships in a network The relationship could be one-to-one. The relationship could be one-to-many. So let's first understand, what a relationship is and how do we perceive it. Because it takes more than one person to form a relationship. And it is a common understanding of those involved in it about its nature that defines it. What I mean by saying this is that if you feel that I'm having a very good relationship with the other person, while the other person or the series of person don't feel it, then in that case, a relationship would never be strong. A relationship is strong only when the people involved in these relationship have got a common and a positive idea about the relationship. Therefore, it is very important for us to think and ponder about, and this is the first point to ponder, how is it that we view our relationships with people, with subordinates, and there could be people, there are different people that we are talking about, because through these networks, we'll be talking to different people. So I'm just putting up some images in front of you to help you, just conceptualize and see, do we see more of such kind of people in our networks within our company? So this is the first picture, which is quite a scary one. This is how we deal with our subordinates. This is another picture, which I think presents a very collaborative environment. This is another picture where the speaker takes the center stage while all the other people are pushed in the background. So here the speaker or the person concerned feels that he or she is a focal point in that particular relationship. The last image, and one of many that we could actually talk about, is that I feel that I'm larger than life. I feel that I have more knowledge and more content to actually bring into that particular relationship, and there should be other people who should be subservient, listening to me, because I have acquired this kind of an experience. Now, these are only representational images. The idea of these representational images is to tell you that all of us think in terms of pictures. I'm sure that you'll agree, and this is well proven by the fact that human beings never started conversing or communicating with each other in terms of words. It were always pictures. So you remember Bhimbetka curves or caves and other places where there are only diagrams. So when I say food, immediately you will first of all think of food. There'll be an image that comes into your mind. So I will exhort all of you and request you that whenever you think of, and this exercise should be done independently and individually. Whenever you think of relationships, whenever you think of subordinates, whenever you think of networks which are there in your company, what is the image that comes to your mind? And you shouldn't stop at that. You should then write on a piece of paper what that image, why did you choose that particular image? That will give you a great idea as to what your thought process is about your relationships in a formal space, in an informal space. That helps you to bring out your innate thought process and will help you to see yourself in a different light, and others also in a different light. And most importantly, this is the question that Mr. Dhar asked, in the beginning, and it's a very important question. What are beliefs? What are our beliefs about relationships? Do we consider networking to be very devious? Do we consider networking to be very arduous, a very difficult task? Do we consider this to be very easy? What is it that we consider, networking as? By the way, all of you are knowingly, unknowingly parts of different networks. And if I were to bring that into your cognizance right now, I'm sure you are part of your family WhatsApp groups. I'm sure that you are part of some professional body or network, on WhatsApp. And all these groups and these networks are there on WhatsApp or some other social media platforms that you are part of. There might be people that you are following. How are these networks operating? Who is driving these networks? Why are you a person in that network? Are you an active participant in that network? Are you a passive participant in that network? Are all the questions that I am putting in front of you all to kindly consider. Now, before we delve further, we need to also understand what are the different kinds of network. So in front of your screen, this is a typical example of a network diagram, and these are live actual network diagrams, which are there, which is there in front of you from a firm. And now let me also tell you that networks and finding out and plotting networks is something that has been there in ages. I was surprised myself. I'm not sure that how many of you have been exposed to it, but I was really surprised when I came to know that in the US, they have created neural networks and algorithms to actually plot people, different types of networks in the company. So what are different types of networks? And the networks that I'm talking here are mostly informal, but there are formal networks as well, and we shall talk about them, just in a little while. But to talk about the informal networks, there are these three prominent type of informal networks. There can be many. So there are advice networks in your company. There would be trust networks in your company. Now, these could be separate networks, or these could be networks which superimpose on each other. So there are people who will be center of these networks. So if you were to actually think of a few years back now, I'm sure that you are all occupying very senior positions, and maybe you are not interacting with so many people in your department in day-to-day basis. But if you were to recall around 10 years back, while you were sitting in a more common space, you would probably notice one particular person to whom everybody goes. या आपके घर में कोई शादी हो, आपको कोई गाड़ी खरीदनी हो, आपको अपने बच्चे का एडमिशन कराना हो, there would be this particular person to whom everybody will go. And that person is very, very open and very forthcoming in giving you advice. Such kind of people are center of advice networks, and they are called mavens. Now, there's this communication network also, in which in the center of the networks are those people who are extremely connected to the rest of the lot. So these are called salespersons. You would probably identify them by people जिनके पास सबका number रहता है. They have got all the contact details. उन्हें ये भी पता रहता है और आज की डेट में कौन सा आदमी कहाँ पे पोस्ट हुआ. उनका दोस्त हर किसी डिपार्टमेंट में रहता है. So those are the people who are in the center of those communication networks. And then there are trust networks. These networks might not be visible overtly, but in public sectors, in my experience, these are the networks which exist very deeply. आप लोगों ने सुना होगा कि there are retired personnel जो कहते हैं कि ये मेरा चेला है, फलाना मेरा लड़का है, and people also revere those individuals who have made some very significant contributions in their life. Such people are, who have touched the lives of many, are at the center of trust network. Mera transfer ho, if I have to take up a new position, I will always go and ask, what do I need to do to, from that particular person who's at the center of trust network. There are friendship networks as well. There are gossip networks as well. So all these networks, Grapevine does not follow in your company on its own. If we were to actually trace its origin, you will actually plot a network like that. So there are people who are at the center of these networks. They are very important people. But there are also people like Holly, which I'm pointing out here, on the screen, or people like John and Pauline, who are the bridge between those networks. To give you an example, maybe, the director HR's STA or his secretary or the chairman's secretary are very important people. These are bridge connectors. They are connectors between, top management and the rest of the company. And it is only through them that the information would pass on. They would decide whom to give audience. So it's very important for us to keep such kind of people in good humor as well. But in different networks, so if I have an advice network and trust network, who are those people who are controlling the information between, let's say, network in plant A and network in plant B? These are the people that we need to find out and, talk to. Now, were these networks ever used? Yes, they were. During American Revolution, people used the sales network or the communication network to quickly, pass on the information. The information was not given to everybody, but only to those people who were in the center of the communication network. And then information or plan of action was shared with the people at the center of the trust network, so that people would go and talk to them and then act on, whatever was required to be done at that particular point of time. Another interesting anecdote that I would like to cite at this particular point of time is that there have been studies in which, we have tried to create these networks, plot these networks, and superimpose these networks with the legitimate networks in the company. Now, the legitimate networks are the networks which are represented by your organization chart typically. Your hierarchies would decide how many people that you are connected to. And those are the formal networks in which you by position of legitimacy, acquire the centrality of these positions. Now, these networks are facing forces from outside and forces from inside formally. So there is an external environment, if you were to actually look into this diagram, which is a diagram by Burke and Litwin, and this is a very crucial model that has been given and proven to be a crucial model for change management. You would see that at the top is the external environment, which envelopes the entire company, which not just impacts the leadership thought process, it impacts your mission and strategy, it impacts your organizational culture. All three factors, which are the crucial factors of strategy, leadership, and culture, impact inherently the structure, the management practices, and the systems, which impact the work climate, and which in turn impact the motivation of the person. So if the formal network, you or the leader would exercise influence, which primarily stems out of their formal authority, then the nature of the network would be different. Whereas if the leaders do not use the formal authority, then the nature of the network would be different. Now, the influence, the way that leaders influence followers is directly and through cascades. So it could be a dyadic interaction, that is, you are talking to your immediate team one-on-one, and this could be a cascade of influence. So you are influencing your subordinate, and then he's in turn influencing the other subordinates. That is why primarily that you will see all the political bosses changing the officers around them to have those people who are in sync with their thought process. It is using those officers that they tend to influence people down below. Now, this cascade, I will just give you an example. It's a very silly and a funny example. The people even down below in your company, and some of them who are typically the centers of communication networks, would automatically know, कि chairman साहब कौन सा favorite खाना है उनका, या अगर कोई director visit कर रहे हैं तो उनकी family में कौन-कौन है, what does he like, what he doesn't like, and how do these information percolate? This information percolates through their offices, and it percolates through this cascade of influence, or the network that cascades your influence down below. Now, the questions that we need to ask at this particular point of time is, how strong is that network, right, which is cascading our influence down below? If that network itself is averse to your thought process, or maybe is not able to see you as a person and is not able to sync with you in your thought process, the kind of image that you might be having down below would be totally different. It is for this reason that when the legitimate networks are superimposed with trust and advice networks, it is often found that leaders do not form the center of the trust and advice networks in different departments. So while you could be the legitimate head of that particular department, but you might not exercise that or not command that kind of trust. Now, we'll also talk about LMX here. I mean, the relationship between the leader and the immediate follower. How does it happen between the people who are directly reporting to you? So generally, there will always be an in-group and an out-group in any department. In-group consists of those followers whom the leaders feel are very competent, whom the leader feel are a shadow of their own. They see themselves in their followers. Whom the leaders feel are loyal to them. Those are the people who will be automatically in the in-group. Now, what is the characteristics of that relationship? The leader would be more benevolent. He would be open to listen to them much more. He would trust, more that particular person. Vis-a-vis the people in the out group, whom the leader might not feel that ideologically close to. Now, let's look at the followers. How do followers, perceive the leaders in this in-group and out-group? Now, the people who are in the in-group at times are there because they also feel that they are similar to the leader. Then I could be in the in-group, or I could create an impression that I am like you, like the leader, because I want to gain advantage of the proximity, that I would get from the proximity of the leader. So one is the natural selection. The leader likes me, I like the leader, and those are the people in the in-group. One is the unnatural selection, wherein the people just create a perception that that they make themselves likable to you, and that's how they are in the in-group. Now, as it is for a leader, it is always better that everybody, whether the people are in the in-group or the out-group, they should not know, because then you will be devoiding yourself of some very valuable feedback that the people in the out-group would like to give it to you. And there will be a trust deficit, so people will feel that there are certain people who are more close to my leader. So please check. This is a point to ponder. Two things. One, am I knowingly or unknowingly creating this in-group and an out-group? Even if I'm creating an in-group, which is absolutely fine, is the distinction between those two groups very evident to the out-group people? Is there a perception that people who are close to my leaders are privy to more advantages? And most importantly, who all are the people in my in-group? Are those people those ones who have joined me or with me because they buy in my idea, they want to further my ambition, do something for the company, take my ideas about the company and work as an aid, or they are there because just they want to create an impression of being a good worker? So are your good soldiers good impression managers? That is one question that I'm leaving you with, that you need to see, because that will impact, your network and the way that network is. Because please understand that the people in the in-group, some of them will be, in that bridge centrality, which will connect you to the rest of the people in your formal network. We have not yet talked about the informal ones, but in your formal networks. And there would be a grapevine that would be starting, and your perception would probably prevent you from being the, the center of the trust network or the advice networks. Now, another point to ponder is to also see what is the power base through which I am influencing people. Am I influencing people through my positional power by rewarding and punishing them? Am I influencing people through my expert power? I know a lot and I can actually influence people, or I'm influencing people through my referent power. That is, people choose to be my follower. Or do I influence people because of that positional or a political power that I have control over decisions, I have control over resources, knowledge. I am a non-substitutable person. There is a lot of dependency that people have. So what is the power base? Research says that the personal power base, which is the expert power and the referent power, has got the maximum, potent or sustainable influence on your followers. Referent power is considered to be, the one of the best power bases to, talk about. So these are the points to ponder that I would like to see. So, which include, what are your leadership beliefs? Who do you feel, are leaders? Leader and leadership are different. Leadership is influence. Influence, ability to influence the people or your followers to do things that they otherwise would not have done. Now, how am I influencing people? What is my behavior? Because your value systems, your belief about yourself will actually be translated into your behavior and your influence mechanisms. And behaviors are only influence delivery mechanisms. So you can ponder, or you can try and get feedbacks from the people that you trust and people who can give you a good picture. Now, again, the leadership style that you have used and the beliefs that you have about leaders, are they valid in the current context? Trust me, with Generation Z coming in, and most of them are in the workforce, some of them might not ascribe to the initial idea of bosses being, like parents, or or being very deferent to the bosses, or being confined to a certain position. So we have to think whether our current belief system and the leadership that we are exercising sufficient enough to put ourselves into the center of the trust and the advice networks. And most importantly, am I able to tap into the existing informal networks with my leadership style? Are my in-group giving me that kind of leverage? And most importantly, is my in-group or myself aware of what kind of informal networks exist in my company? Can I create these informal networks? Are the questions that I'm leaving you with. Now, once we are trying to talk about networks in the form of relationships, we also need to understand the other half of the relationship, which is followership. Please understand that leadership does not exist without followership. They are essentially the two ends of a continuum. So we need to understand followers as well. Now, let me here talk about how is it that that this concept has actually come about. Because if you leave people just like that in any kind of a situation, you will see that leaders and followers will automatically emerge. Why? Because one person, this is called byproduct domination theory, is that one person would have, access to more resources. That person would be more resourceful, maybe even more powerful, because of which that person would command leadership, because others perceive benefits in being followers to that particular leader. Another thing because of which the followership emerges is a social coordination theory. It's a strategic game in which people actually see where is the maximum advantage. Do I have an advantage if I become a leader, or I have an advantage in becoming a follower? Now, if everybody wants to become a leader, then the group becomes defunct. Because then there'll be no definitive say in that network. If everybody wants to be a follower, that doesn't work either, because there'll be all passive people in that particular network. So it was found, and these two theories have been predicted or have been stated to actually predict followership for time immemorial. People want to become followers because they feel that there is always an advantage in a situation where one person is a leader and the other people are followers. And because of this, the followership has emerged. But then these followers could be of different types. What are these types of followers? I would try and demystify by virtue of quoting certain kind of research. Now, these are common identities of the followers. Some of them could be conformist. They are not commitment oriented. So whatever you ask them to do, they will do it. But they will not form those fulcrum or the cruxes to actually keep the burden or keep the baggage of change on their heads and forge ahead. They would simply conform to whatever they have said. Another broad definition is one of the resistant people. This resistance could be overt, this resistance could be covert. So there are people who would overtly say, I'm sorry, sir, I do not agree, or they'll just keep mum in a public sector. And most importantly, they will cite too many policies and things to you, which will tell you that it is very impossible for them to actually do this work. The third category is a little more tricky and a little devious, are the dramaturgical ones, the people who create impression management, typically create an impression of being either a conformist or being totally very, very committed to your idea. So such kind of people are very difficult, at times very difficult to find out, but you can always get information about such people by taking feedback from different sources, and I'm sure that you would be doing such. But at times such people are so good that they will fool us into believing that they'll be working with us while they're working in totally in opposite to whatever we are thinking. Now, Your influence could be anything, but it is the perception of the follower about your influence which will decide whether your influence is effective or not. I will give you an example. Let's say there is a person who is, who's groomed in the public sector for a longer period of time, used to taking directions from the boss. And and you come across as a person in a network, in a legitimate network or an informal network. Initially, you cannot expect to be friendly with that person to exercise influence. That person would expect direction from you. That person would expect that kind of a leadership from you. So we will have to, many a times it is always considered negative that, why do we need to direct people? But there are people who would be actually looking towards you to give that direction. So we have to actually categorize followers to choose what is the most appropriate influence mechanism. Situational leadership actually talks about it a lot more, and I'm presenting it in a very different manner. Now, again, followers also exercise reverse influence through feedback, but only if they are working in a context where this kind of feedback is heard and this particular feedback, and they are able to give their feedbacks. So are we, allowing our followers to exercise reverse influence? And to what extent we are converting that reverse influence into actionable items? Because if people do not ask questions, then in that case, you will never have a difference of opinion. If you never have a difference of opinion, you will never have innovations in your company. Now, followers in India typically is a part of the research prefer personalized relationships. I feel it is still true with Gen Z. The followers have an external locus of control. That is, hardly they will feel that they are responsible for everything. They feel that there's something, it is the external environment. So when you often talk to followers, they'll say, oh, it's very difficult for us to take an initiative. What do we do? The top bosses are not favoring us, etc., etc. So this is a typical example of an external locus of control. Bosses are perceived as a benevolent source. This is very true for public sectors. And this is also a part of my research, coming out of my research. I am not sure how this is manifesting with Gen Z, but as far as my study goes, still the millennials would like to see their bosses as mentors or somebody who would like to care for them. Extending this classification, this is Kelly's follower typology, which talks about these 5 types of followers. At the topmost of them are star followers. Now, these are the followers who are exceedingly high energy, they are actively engaged, and they are independent and critical thinkers. They are identified by initiative. That's the hallmark which Kelly talks, and he says that these are the people who not just take initiative in their department. So they are not star followers. They are the people who take initiative for the company or something outside their comfort zones. These are the people who want to partner with their leadership in taking things forward. Now, often this kind of people would feel stifled in a public sector setup if they are not given that kind of a freedom because of the nature of our cultures. Then there are alienated people who could be the resistant ones, who are very independent and critical thinkers, but they are alienated. They are not positively engaged, And then there are sheep followers who are, dependent. They are uncritical thinking. They would just wait for your orders. They would not take any initiative. They would not just wait for the orders, but would also wait for you to tell them how to do the job. Then there are yes people. Yes people are critical thinkers. They are not uncritical thinkers. But or for that matter, I'm sorry, they are more positively engaged, but they are not too much of critical thinkers. So you will ask them to do a certain thing, they will do it. If you don't ask them to do anything, they will not do it. And then the most common variety and the larger number of people are pragmatic people. They are the fence sitters. They will check the bosses. They will check the environment. Where is the current flowing? So they will actually go. So if the order comes from a chairman, if the order comes from the director or from a distinguished gentleman like you, if the order is repeated orders, they would sense that this is important to the leader and they will do it. Otherwise, they will wait. They will wait once or twice for them to be pushed. Now, ideally, as per Kelly's research, and maybe you would be able to corroborate, in any company, only 10 to 20% of the people are the star followers, whereas around 70% of the people, 60 to 70 or 80% of the people are pragmatic, yes people and sheep, and the last 10% of the people are negative. They are alienated, they are beyond correction. So we need to understand what type of followers we have, and that's the reason why I've given you a questionnaire, which is based on this particular typology itself. It will help you to identify what is the nature of your followers. So you can think of your followers in a collective manner and think about the most common type of followers that you encounter either in your team or in your company. What you can do to make your response very accurate is think of a person. Think of a person, name the person, the sex of a person, so that you will create an identity in your mind of a follower, and then answer the questions. They are just merely 20 questions, but if you were to actually answer this, you will come to know what kind of followers you have in majority, and then what could be your tactic to actually create that trusting relationship that we would be talking about now, right now. So I would just like to give an example for creation of trust here in the system. So imagine you've lost your keys, and you are there in the night, and there's nobody around, and you've lost the keys of your flat or your office, and you are waiting, and there's only light which is shining on you. There's nobody around, and you've lost your keys. Suddenly a person comes in, and a little bit shabbily dressed, and he offers, and he says that he'll be able to open the key. And he says, I'm confident. Would you allow him to help you? So I'll not wait for the answer. It's a rhetoric question. You'll not allow him to help him, not just because he is competent to do the job. Trust generally is built on two types. One is based on competence, which is a hygiene factor. Itna to hona hi chahiye, and that is true for the bosses also. If I were to trust them, I must know that they know their job. That's basic. And then it is cemented by your values and behavior. So we need to understand, classify people, and see whether the influence typology or the behavior that I'm using with those people are the behavior that they want. Am I treating the way the people want to be treated? If it is so, there'll be a resonance, and they will be engaged to you, and there'll be a trust. Now, trusting in a relationship is also dependent upon the propensity of the other person to trust. So it's a part of the culture as well. So in our culture, do we trust easily? I'm sure in a company like SAIL, which has got such a glorious past, there is this element of trust which is built in. We just need to change how that trust is defined and how the people perceive that relationship. So they just need not trust us with our intent. They also need to trust us with, what is our next action going to be. And this trust will give people voice behavior, that they will, be able to speak without any fear of any repercussion, and would also position yourself very, stoutly at the center of the trust network. The more that image is created, the more your position in the trust network is cemented, and then you will be able to take advantages of the network. So these are the points of ponder that I would like to leave you with towards the end, that what is the prototypical identity of my follower? How can I create more star followers in my team? How can I, make these people as a central and the bridge of the network? So it is dependent upon you. You want to start innovation in your company, start with that innovative network. But please look into those networks that you see. I quoted many of the social media influencers. If you were to actually look at them, you will see that they just not keep on pushing the content. They ask for your engagement as well. Please comment, what reels would you like me to make? Please comment as to how you are finding my content. It's a continuous two-way engagement. In that cases, those people are furthering their own agenda in the thought process. In your case, you could actually create or take challenges of your company and then use those challenges as the fulcrum or the starting point of creation of a community, which will look for not just look for a solution at that particular point of time, but would keep on working to create many such solutions. And the people in those networks would be driven by your sense of proprietorship, by your sense of stewardship, by your sense of values that you're driving the networks with. So you have to find out what is that identity that I have to create about myself, which will help the followers to listen to me and would also be influenced by my typology. I'm aware of the time limit, and I think I've already exceeded around 5 to 10 minutes of the time. And that is all that I have to share, with all of you. I once again would like to, tell you all that these are all merely sets of propositions. I am not trying to suggest anything about your company, your networks. It is for you to assess, find out, and and take it forward. We have already discussed, I think Darsab would kindly endorse that we can always think of taking further initiatives and help people who feel that they need a little bit of assistance in terms of creation of these networks, maybe creating of social media tools and networks which can actually drive these kinds of informal communications. With this, I conclude my talk and I open this session for any kind of questions. I hope that I have this time adhered to the time limit. Thank you once again.
You have, sir. In fact,
For
very
being
much on
such a
time.
wonderful listener. Thank you.
Sir, thank you, sir, for this very enlightening session, sir, and very fresh topic, I must say. Now it's time for our participants, all the seniors, to kindly opportunity to engage directly with the sir. I encourage you, sir, if you can ask directly the questions, or if not possible, if there is any issue, then you can also put it in the chat box, sir.
Good evening. My name is Firoz Khan. I'm CGM in CET, SAIL Ranchi.
Sir.
Good evening, Khan sir.
Sir, I have experienced that in networks, there are conflicts. Conflicts are bound to happen. Conflicts due to personalities, conflict due to perceptions, due to miscommunication, and many things. And these conflicts reduce the effectiveness of the network. So, can you give some tips on how to reduce or prevent these conflicts? One thing I found useful is clarity of communication and clarity of goals and roles. Sir, can you give some tips?
So, I'll just be sharing with you my experience of the same things. I'll tell you first about my experience of creating knowledge network in NTPC. So, when I started with the knowledge management initiative in the company, then people were totally disengaged. They did not know what knowledge management is all about, and we then created awareness workshops. After creating those awareness workshops, I found that I'm not able to find those evangelists in the team. So what I did was that I started a campaign, and I used my interns, and मेरे पास बहुत सारा पैसा नहीं था, sir, and the department had said कि आप करिए, हमने पता कैसे करेंगे. So I asked them to create a video, and we used to tune from Laksh, a movie probably you would have heard, which is a military background and and all that. So the tagline of this entire video was that the company has given so much for you, what can you give to us in return? And I found that there is a huge amount of, traction that I could see. I even saw people crying, at the end of the video. Now, using them to be associated with any network without any power, included in it, when everybody is a worker, then these kinds of conflicts actually tend to melt away because they are talking about, and this is a very होने को sir, if you talk about this is a very theoretical concept of saying कि एक superordinate goal बनाओ, but that goal has to be touching my heart. If I do that, then I will, leave that, the conflicts are there. Ideological conflicts fir bhi hoga, sir. But the negative conflicts are those, about getting power or centrality of the network. You can also be, so let's say that is the advantage of the senior people being as a mentor of those networks. They can actually assuage the power motivations of people and say, okay, boss, there's a lot of room for you people to grow. And yes, you rightly said that it has also been found out that the major source of conflicts are basically emotional conflict. However, the root of that conflict is when you don't define your systems, policies, etc. But sir, I would like you to consider that when we are talking about these kinds of initiatives and these networks, they are not driven by any formal agenda. They are just driven by a purpose. And those purpose, everybody, you, me, everyone occupy the same seat. The only thing is that you can always take advantage of you being a mentor, of that particular network, so that respect would flow to you, and you can use your influence to actually smoothen out or iron out any kind of, conflicts, be it even ideological, because at the end of the day, you'll also have to conclude those discussions. This is my take.
Thank you.
Sir, we have another question in the chat box.
Yeah.
How to create star followers? Or maybe convert the pragmatic to the star followers.
So we have to see, why these cynical people have actually become in the company. We need to, and this is deep dive. In my experience, again, in NTPC, I found that people become cynical because they feel कि मैंने feedback दिया, उस feedback का कोई जवाब नहीं आया. I am a non-entity. I have no face in the company. मैं कुछ भी कर लूं, कुछ नहीं move होता. These kinds of cynicisms, when they get inside the people, they will feel. I'll give you an example of a website called Busy Bee. Please, उस website को जाकर के देखिए. There's a person called Professor Anil Gupta, amazing person, who's right now, I think, in IIM Bangalore. वो शोध यात्रा करते हैं पूरी इंडिया में एक साल भर में. I do not know कि अभी करते हैं कि नहीं. And he took our class and उन्होंने बताया कि जब भी मैं आइडिया मांगता हूँ लोगों को, तो आप बिलीव नहीं करेंगे, the ideas that he get are around to the tune of lakhs. And he said that, why do you think I get so many ideas? He said that I get so many ideas because each and every idea which comes to me is basically acknowledged. I will respond to that particular person either using AI or any kind of acknowledgement. And that particular idea, I will tell them whether this idea is worked upon, not worked upon, etc., etc. So I feel that many of these causes could actually make those people shift into an alienated follower. Now I must recount your CMD's, honorable CMD's words that we are a group of excellent people, and all the public sectors are. After all, you select the cream of of talent in the in this nation. So how come that particular talent is just not motivated to put in their efforts? So if their efforts are recognized and genuinely recognized, so it's one thing to just issue a I'll just again please permit me to recount. मेरे साथ एक सीनियर मैनेजर हुआ करते थे, और वो ये कहते थे कि ये एनटीपीसी जब ये बर्थडे विश करता है तो सबसे कुरूप आदमी को बर्थडे विश करने के लिए क्यों भेजता है? अगर फूल भेज रहा होता है तो एक ऐसे आदमी को भेजे जो फूल कम से कम प्यार से तो दे. ये आदमी आता है और फूल ऐसे पटक के चल जाता है, हैप्पी बर्थडे. ऐसा लगता है कि वो जो है मुझे धमका के गया बजाय बर्थडे विश करने के. So what are we doing? How are we treating those people? Are we treating them as individuals? Are we treating them with that kind of a love and respect? I think these are some of the recipes. However, we have to be much sure by doing a little bit of research and finding out the kind of followers that we have and finding out why they have actually turned tables. And then very specific strategy can be, can be taken up.
Sir, one last question. Just allow me to squeeze one last question.
Yeah. What is the definition of competence?
Sir.
So competence out here is typically technical competence. Nobody, and when I'm saying that competence is a hygiene factor, it is a technical competence. A leader should be able to know their job, which I hardly feel is not is a condition here in SAIL, because this is one thing that I can share with you out of my research of public sector, and leadership in public sector is that all the leaders in public sectors are considered to be very high in technical competence, very high in technical competence. There are no two ways about it. So it's only the other part of, the kind of values that I exude and the values that I demand from my followers is something that, people are looking at.
This is Majumdar, CGM Sinta Plant DSP. Actually,
Namaskar, Majumdar
my
sir.
question that competence in leadership, basically what you have told that technical knowledge you are talking about.
Yes.
But nowadays we used to see that the person having the experience over the years on a particular field of expertise is being transferred to some other department. This is quite in fashion right now for better management. So what is the latest take on it? Whether this is right for betterment of the particular person or betterment of that company, for betterment of whom basically it is?
Okay, so sir, one thing that I must say here, that when I'm saying technical competence does not mean technical. Sometimes we confuse as at metallurgy something. No. So technical competence means all the knowledge that is required for a particular person to discharge his or her responsibility. That includes the knowledge of policies and practices of a company. So if I were to be transferred to a different place which is totally alienated, a leader can actually do 2 to 3 strategies. A, it is very okay for people, it's not just the leader, but the followers also know that the leader has a different background. He's come now from a very different background. If the leaders acknowledge publicly that, guys, I'm, let me learn from you, because please understand that these are the case of disjunctive orientations. You might not have a person, or you might have a business unit now, just jo pehle kabhi thi hi nahi. Abhi with social media, with sustainability, with AI, there could be many other fields जिसके बारे में आपको कुछ भी पता नहीं होगा. So what will you do in that case? Of course, it is incumbent of the company when they are transferring one person to a totally different place to arrange for somebody's mentorship, so that that person can actually initially be handled. Because problem kya hai ki in such high positions as yours, it is very difficult to find mentors. You cannot just simply go down and say ki acha mujhe batao yaar kaise kaam ho raha hai. It's very difficult. So I hope that the company is creating those kinds of knowledge networks. And one network could be the set of around 100 people or 81 people that are there in this place. You can, as it is, create a WhatsApp group which will help you to exchange notes when you are going from one place to the other. But I'm sure that the company will facilitate that as well. But it is also said that when leaders acknowledge, their soft spots, they are more believable. In fact, it has been found that people see those leaders with very high amount of respect, that, being a leader, this person is still saying that I need to learn from you. And that is not seen as negative to begin with, because those people are also aware that you have suddenly been shipped to some new planet, and you will take time. After all, we all are human beings, sir. I think that's my take.
Sir, thank you, sir. Sir, may I now request Sanjay sir to please give a summary of the proceedings and also to extend vote of the thanks, sir. But more than summary of the proceedings, sir. Sanjay, sir.
I would, if before, just
Sir.
taking your permission, Rajesh,
Please,
because
please,
you're the
please.
MC, in case there are questions, I am not an authority. Of course, I've done my PhD, etc., etc. I cannot weigh my experience in front of the experience that you all distinguished gentlemen have, but I sure have a point of view. I always have a point of view, and that point of view can help you. So if you wish to seek my point of view, I think the HR department can facilitate that. You can post your questions. I will put my point of view through a voice note to either Rajesh or Dharsab, and they can communicate my voice note to all of you. So
Sir,
you
I
may
will,
want to use
if
that.
you allow, sir, can I post your contact details on the group chat?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Please
Thank you.
please post my contact details. Yeah.
Sir,
Thank you.
Sanjay sir.
Thank you. I think it's been a pleasure and a delight to go through the last 1 hour, and I understand. I also respect time and try to keep it short and crisp. As Dr. Pant mentioned at the very beginning, our basic imagery of how we see things helps us to understand what our core beliefs are about anything, but he did it in the context of networks. And he helped us understand networks from multiple perspectives. We have advised networks, we have trust networks, and we have communication networks. And they are different uh, uh, aspects of leverage that we have within our own organization. So we need to appreciate that when we're talking about networks, we are talking about our leverage. How do we really leverage what we are and what kind of influence we have? And the other aspect which is very relevant at our level is our organizational sensitivity in terms of placing people as to where they are in the network map of the organization, because we understand that that is what we can tap for multiplying or magnifying our influence, and then understanding who the mavens in the organization are and being sensitive to them and tapping them, or understanding who the salespersons in the network are and then tapping into them is something that we have to develop as a capability as leaders, because at the end of the day, our main role is influence. The operational issues get done by different people. You also helped us to understand the impact of influence cascades, and it was a very interesting insight for us to understand that what are the kind of people you cultivate in your own network, because ultimately your network will determine your image. You directly will not determine your image. What is said about you and what is communicated about you through the network will determine your image. So if I actually am relying or leveraging the wrong kind of network, what might happen is that even with my best intentions, I'll end up getting an image which is not a reflection of me, and I'm wondering what has happened with all my best intentions. So that was a very interesting insight for me, that people whom I cultivate or people through whom I operate could influence my overall influence, how I'm thinking. And you also raised a very interesting point about our subconscious biases, where we create in-groups and out-groups, and we may not even be conscious of. And that is one area where we need to start pondering. The other area that we need to start pondering as leaders is, once we acknowledge the fact that we do create in-groups and out-groups, are we able to manage the differences in a manner where it doesn't cause a trust deficit? Because we have to take the whole team along. So that was one aspect. And the other aspect is that what are the kind of in-groups that I have, which comes back to the same question that you said. The kind of in-group that I have will determine the kind of network influence that I have. And that will determine the kind of image that I have. So we really need to be socially active on that aspect. And I'm not talking about socially active in the social network part, one of the social media part. It's actually about the physical social networks of the organization. And then that's very interesting. And I must really thank you, Dr. Pant, for bringing in leadership at the heart of networks and understanding the core of leadership as influencing your networks. Because what you mentioned was something very interesting for me. I have to check my beliefs in leadership, because do my beliefs in leadership put me at the center of a trust network? Because what we have seen is that in terms of influence, in terms of deciding policy, in terms of taking decisions, it is the trust networks which have the maximum influence. And do my beliefs put me there in the trust networks of other people? Because if I'm not there, I am totally reliant on formal power. And the moment it is not there, it's not there. That's it. That was something very interesting for us to really appreciate. And the other part was, is my leadership style enabling me to tap into the informal networks? So if I put people off, I isolate myself from the networks of the organization, I'm actually getting cut off. My sources of influence are gone. So that was very interesting. And frankly enough, it was a very interesting insight for me that from the networks we got down to the kind of followers that we have, because we understand they are a lot of a key element of our network. So whether we have conformists or we have, and then again, I found one interesting insight that I wanted to share was, if I have dramaturgists, those people who work on impression management as a significant part of my followers, frankly enough, the only way I can really, find them out is if I have a more robust network, so that I get alternate, feedback to tell me that, I'm being gamed. Otherwise, the
Most
problem
of them are
becomes-
predictable, sir.
Yeah.
But then there, some of them are very, very good.
Uh,
Very good at the game.
the challenge is finding out those very good ones, because they take care of themselves very well, and they end up causing a lot of damage. So unless I have a good network, I will actually start feeling, and then what will happen is the impression goes that I am part to a coterie, and that is not good for me as a leader. That was something very, very interesting thing. And I really appreciated the point that you mentioned again about leadership style. Are we as leaders allowing, our followers to exercise reverse influence? Because again, as you mentioned at the very beginning about networks follow when in a relationship, both partners or both elements actually find value in that, and they value it equally. That can happen only when we have a reverse relationship, and that was something very interesting. And then you also mentioned the point when there was this query about people taking transfers and going to a different context and maybe feeling technically incompetent, because actually it's not incompetence, it's more of getting out of the comfort zone. I think that's what we are trying to say. Because I trust my organization quite well. If we are placed in some place, they have enough faith that we have the basic technical competence to pick up the threads. The rest we'll work out with the people. And you already mentioned, rest we have to ask the people, okay, this is what I know, this is what I don't know, but let's figure out, let's build a trust network and get things done. So what you mentioned was that if I have a strong network, and at our level, mentors are difficult to find. My network is my mentor network. So that can be a big source of comfort and authority to me. Really, very, very useful and insightful things. And as I said, we started off this conversation, and you started off this conversation by saying, at our level, it's not just about our networks, it's also about the kind of networks we nurture, the kind of networking opportunities that we provide to our people, and then the kind of networks that we leverage because we have nurtured them and things like that. And if we are actually able to leverage these aspects of our organization culture, I'm sure we can get great results and really tap the knowledge that is inherent within our own organization. And because that knowledge will flow to us, those solutions will flow to us through the network that we have nurtured and through the networks that we have. I'd like to thank Dr. Pant again for a very insightful and a very thoughtful and thought-provoking. You left us with a lot of propositions to think about. I request all the participants to go through the video once again, and especially take a pause on those slides where he had posed those questions, because those are points to ponder. And I'm sure we will get a lot of practical insights for us on calibrating our leadership style and figuring out what we need to do. And I'd also like to thank all our CGMs and EDs, the participants of this session of Antardrishti, for their active participation and for their patient listening. And I hope that it has been an insightful session for you, which will actually help you to make a lot of transformation organization, things in this way. So thank you once again. Thank you, Dr. Pant, for your
Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much.
Thank
You, everyone, for being a part of such a great session. And might I remind you of the the questionnaire? If you would like to leverage it, it is there for you.
We will share
we'll
to all the participants the questionnaire, the link to the questionnaire, and also to the recording part, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Dr. Pant.
Thank you for
Thank you
having
for
me.
your time, sir.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you all, sir. We'll close the meeting now, sir. Thank you all for your time, sir. Thank you.